Ready to order.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just got it.
Let the record show that all board members are present with the exception of Eric Meeks and Eric Strandberg. And we do have citizens' comments tonight, Tanya Scott. And you can approach the board and stand at that podium is fine. And welcome.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I want to thank all of you for having me here today. And I'm the mother of 4 children in the district. We have 2 in high school and 2 in the primary right now. And first, I'd like to address the bathroom and locker room usage. I'd written and expressed my concern with not having enough singular use restrooms. I don't like that they share them right now anyways, but myself and my husband and my children aren't comfortable with it. And with numerous attempts on my part to the school, to the state, everywhere, it's kind of just an all over. I can't change it. So my children are told if they're not comfortable using the restroom with an opposite biological gender, they can use a single-use restroom. My children have informed me that there's not many of them at all. So, and I did get a response that the board is planning in the future to add more. And I still don't understand the logic of how it's not discrimination against my children to tell them to use a singular restroom versus another child. I think it kind of goes both ways in both parts. And I don't feel like it's a medical necessity that you have to use a bathroom at whichever you're choosing, of whatever you identify as. My children did not make the choice for someone else to want to change their gender, but yet they are forced to be comfortable in private spaces with sharing that. In our house, my son doesn't go to the bathroom with me or his sisters. And likewise, my daughters don't use the same restroom as my husband or the brother. We do not judge anybody in our house based on their race, ethnicity, gender, appearance, or anything else. We don't try to change anyone, but yet my children are being taught this biologically incorrect way of thinking. It is impossible to change DNA. I would offer a suggestion of how another school did change their bathrooms, and they included full stalls where the doors and everything went down to the floor. So there you wouldn't even be able to see anybody, which would be great. So my next comment would be the use and how it is allowed in our schools. I think it should be put in the parent handbook or the student parent handbook. And I know it was kind of a shock when I found out when my child came home and told me, and they were uncomfortable. And I don't feel like it is singling anyone out or discriminating against anyone, because it's biological gender. You can't change the DNA. It's gender. It's not race. It's not anything else. It's physical body parts. Yeah, I feel it would give more transparency within the district with parents. And then my last thing that I wanted to bring up was there's been some book publishers that have integrated critical race theories into other subjects such as math books. And as far as I know, that is not being taught in Princeton. I'm very thankful for that. And I talk to my kids pretty openly about everything that goes on. But nothing really surprises me. So one of the questions I did leave was, how can we view our children's classroom curriculums? And the health teacher did a great job this year with the health class, and I had asked what the curriculum was, and she provided it to me, and I had my child dismissed for part of it because it goes against our family beliefs. And with all of that, I would also like to say it's been a great adjustment. We moved here almost 2 years ago now, and they've all adjusted very well. It's better behavioral wise, and it's, yeah, so I mean, it is a good school district. And the teachers are very great, they're very responsive and easy to communicate with, and any concerns, it's been easy to communicate with, and all my kids are proud to be Tigers. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we will move on to board reports, board member committee reports. We'll start with Don.
I've had community ed and policy.
Jim?
Policy.
I had agenda planning. Jen
I had cotton.
and Jeff?
I had agenda planning and the policy meeting.
We don't have a student council report tonight. Superintendent report.
I'll just hit on quite a few things. I want to thank Tanya. I thought you did a really nice job. Thank you. Yeah, as it relates to long-term facility maintenance needs and construction needs in our district, I think we're aware that there are a number of needs that we have. And we are exploring an option to utilize some lease levy funding for a substantial project that we would have the ability to fund without having a bond referendum. We are waiting for a meeting with Wold and ICS. I believe that's being coordinated. There was the two big things that we were asking them to focus on is a space for career technical education to provide more hands-on space in kind of the VOTEC areas, and also come up with solutions for us for more private restrooms, as was referred to this evening. We know that that's something that we need to pursue and update our buildings, especially the high school. So we hope to have some additional information for you. We think that, our hope would be to do both of those things, if we're going to have a new wing or a new area to be able to provide new solutions to restroom use as well. The very difficult thing is, as you all know, by watching the news and everything else, is that inflation has really caused increased challenges where, about the most money that we feel that we could have allocated in this funding mechanism would be $3 to $4 million ish. And the unfortunate truth is that $3 to $4 million may not provide much for solutions. So that's what we're going to have to look at once we get information back from our architects. I just want to share some information just on the end of the year. We're excited and celebrate the fact that we are nearing the end of April in a year that nobody really knew even if we would have. This year, if you ask any of our team members, and probably even students, 1 year almost seems like 2 or 3 years. But lots of end of the year excitement, graduation certainly coming up. School board scholars event I know that you have going on, lots of ball games, lots of concerts, let your end of the year stuff where, literally hard to schedule anything because we're double and triple booked in our facilities almost every evening. And also I just want to point out the music department's having an event that they do it. And I think I'm going to play the guitar and sing, and we're going to do a little cool arrangement with some folks. We're going to determine where it's going to be, but as they do a variety show, I know Jim has participated in that before. It's like a fundraiser for them, so that should be kind of fun. Our climate and culture committee has continued to work, just really looking to enhance, our solutions to have a cultural literate students, a place where our entire system is safe and respectful for all students. And I know we've gone a couple of years without recommending any changes to our continuous improvement plan. I do anticipate to have a couple of small modifications that we would like the board to consider for next year, especially under that area of climate and culture. I'm happy to have Director of Teaching and Learning, Jessica Town Gunderson, here this evening. I won't steal much of her thunder, but I just would share with you that, you know, we've been spending a lot of time on teaching and learning. You know, I think that some of the initial data that is coming to light on our MCAs is indicating what we were afraid of, in that there was some loss in learning over the last year and a half, 2 years. And I think you're going to hear a lot of more sense of urgency from me, and our staff will as well, as it relates to using data to drive decision-making in the classroom, to differentiate instruction, to meet the needs of every single student. We're going to be trying to increase our rigor as it relates to curriculum development, and embedding English language arts standards into all content areas, doing some more focusing on authentic literacy across all content areas as well. So lots of work and discussions happening, and really getting regrounded and refocused on what we're here to do, and that's student learning. And you know, that includes retooling some of our professional learning communities as well, and PLCs, and how we utilize our time and those kinds of things. You'll hear quite a bit from Jess more on teaching and learning. And with that, I'll end my remarks unless you have any further questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you. We'll move on to approve the agenda. For a motion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. To approve the agenda as presented. Motion made by Chad. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jim. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 7, discuss and act on previous board meeting minutes from 4/5/22. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? So moved. Motion made by Deb.
Second.
Second by Don. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. There's a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Motion made by Jim,
Second.
second by Chad. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll move on to number 9, our board showcase. This was part of our goal of communication to try to highlight great things that are going on, as well as communicating with different groups within the district. And we have Jessica for that tonight.
All right, let's finagle the sound.
Mhm.
So that's ready to go. I will. Is that enough?
I'll do this way until we get to your video, maybe.
Okay. Emily, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, all right, so one of the very exciting things we are doing is taking a comprehensive approach to how we do reading instruction. And this is concentrated at our primary building. So specifically K1 and 2, if we want to see what we call equitable outcomes for children. So you can't predict the students' outcomes based on race or socioeconomics or qualification for special education, et cetera, name your category. What we have to do is ensure all students can read. So letters training, language essentials for teachers of reading and spelling, is based on the science of reading and really rocks our world in terms of what does daily instruction in the classroom look like. So we have been teaming with MDE with AmeriCorps, who provides some of our reading volunteers in the district, as well as one of their designers of curriculum to implement some wide sweeping changes. And we were also invited to the legislature to do some lobbying because they heard of what we were doing. So the first 4 slides I have here is basically the information that I gave to the legislature so that you're in the loop in terms of what we're doing here. But systems alignment. So we're taking a comprehensive approach. We've got groups of people that could act independently if we didn't take the sweeping approach in making sure that every part of our system is aligned. So for example, teachers have autonomy in their classrooms. And we've got to make sure that they're very aware of what are the most important things that affect students' ability to learn to read. Right? We have interventionists, and we've got to make sure that they know all of the same information, how to identify missing gaps in what students are able to do, and matching interventions to kind of plug those holes. Same with special education teachers. Students that are identified with a learning disability, for example, or dyslexia, do not need different instruction. They may need more dosage, more explicit, more systematic, more practice, but the science of reading says it's the same type of instruction that works for all humans.
Who are the interventionists?
So interventionists would be any of our title teachers or paraprofessionals, our ADSIS. So they are specifically helping students with mini lessons that are designed just for them or small groups.
So the teacher is directing them?
So the data is directing them.
The teacher and the data?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. So targeted programs refers to our summer programs, so Summer Tiger Academy, and also to our school year targeted services programs. So we have restructured how we do that using data. So we don't organize kids, for example, anymore by grade for those services. We organize them by skill needed, and then we directly instruct them in that skill and give them practice in it. So it wouldn't be uncommon that you have a first grader and a second grader sitting side by side working on the same thing. And then our administrators and other folks that are in their roles to support teachers, we've got to make sure that they have the same knowledge as well. So me, for example, I'm taking letters, our building principals taking letters, our data coordinator is taking letters. So the people that would support teachers, we all understand what it is we're trying to accomplish day to day in the classrooms. So systems alignment, making sure that we all have common goals and common way to get there. We also take a comprehensive approach to what we're doing. So it's not just the people, it's also the materials that we have available and tools we have available to teachers in the classrooms that we need to take a look at. And then we also have to think about any new teachers to the system. If we train now, new teachers in the future won't have this information. And so we have to design a way to make sure that everyone gets it as they come into the system as well.
Was this used all this year already?
This is what we are learning this year.
Okay,
So
so this started with the kids at the beginning of the year.
correct.
All right,
Yes,
all right. And you didn't see any improvement, or you did see improvement?
we are.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, so 21-22, it was an early adopter group. What we did is just say who wants into this to learn about science of reading. Understand this is about 72 hours of professional development time. So this is teachers every week doing an hour and a half of study on their own, reading and watching videos. And then every 2 weeks we get together to debrief those 2 weeks of learning in another hour and a half. So every 2 weeks, these teachers are engaging in 5 hours of professional development all year long.
And are you leading that? Are you participating with them?
I am learning with them, and then MDE is facilitating the debriefs with us.
This is during the school day.
This is after the school
After.
day. Mhm.
So they get paid extra?
Big deal.
Okay.
Yes. All right, so we have a large group, 31 of us in the cohort, 14 classroom teachers, 6 of the folks that fall in the interventionist category, 3 special ed teachers, and then 5 that we would call admin and teacher support people. And then we also have 3 early childhood teachers that opted to come in as well. So there's 31 of us. The buzz is happening across the district, so teachers know what other teachers are learning and more teachers want in. So I'm happy to report we will open cohort 2 for next year, and we would have about the same number of people interested. This would range from pre-K through 5th grade. So this information is what kindergarten, 1st grade, and 2nd grade, actually, and 3rd grade teacher would use every day in the classroom. It is good for up to 5th grade to know in case there are any holes and teachers need to go back and plug those. We will have, I asked the teachers who's ready now through the survey. So we have the 2nd cohort ready. I'm considering everyone else ready next. So there will be a little bit of a revised system. It won't be quite as intense, but all of our teachers need some core information. So we have a plan to get all of them what they need, as well then as our continuous improvement, meaning the new teachers coming in. And it's not a topic that you train and then don't talk about. So into our systems, we have to build checkpoints where we're making sure that we're staying true to science of reading throughout the school year.
So all of them being K3 or all of them being
K5.
K5? If you're K3, can you choose not to?
I am taking the attitude that everybody will want to,
Okay.
and therefore everybody will, yes.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a phased approach.
Mhm.
Eventually, we'll get to a place of anyone who hasn't chosen to do that, they'll have to insist that they participate.
Is there summer work too?
There, I don't know why that keeps popping up. It's not an email I use. Is there summer work too? The training is designed so that you practice things with students. So there's not a lot of the content that you can do in the summer without students present. You practice in the classroom when you're learning online. I did want to bring up as well that at the same time, so that is one giant undertaking that we're going, but at the same time, we're also doing a materials review because our subscription was up for the materials we were using. What we have learned in this process is you have to be very, very careful about what materials you purchase for the district. There are way too many choices that do not align with science of reading. So we are piloting 2 options for K2 this year. I'm happy to report both of them are good options. So we have teachers that on both pilots that would love to adopt it as system-wide for next year. That decision will come after we get our data back from the testing that's going on right now. So I anticipate we have a decision by the end of April. And which way we're going there. So this is what I presented to the legislature along with the plea that they give districts or allocate districts the funding to make this happen. As you mentioned, Jim, it's expensive. It happens after school, 5 hours every 2 weeks. We have budgeted, we have allocated our dollars and prioritized this because of the importance of reading. And we would appeal for more funding to help us on the journey. So the question is, what does it look like in our classrooms? You've heard us talk a little bit about Haggerty. We're big Haggerty fans. When you look at science of reading, the 2 parts that are most important in these younger grades are called phonemic awareness and phonics. Phonemic awareness is all about listening skills, being able to hear all the sounds in English and manipulate them. Like I can hear the middle sound, I can change the beginning sound kind of activities. This is even before you put letters with it. So no print with it. Can they rhyme? Can they create alliteration? Those types of activities. So I asked teachers if we could do a little video, and that's what I've got. I've got 3 short clips. One from kindergarten in Haggerty, one from 1st grade in Haggerty, and then I also have a clip of what it looks like when we do the phonics part with the letters. On the side here on the right, that is a visual that's in one of our kindergarten classrooms, but we have these in all classrooms in the primary building, including interventionist spaces. But these are called sound walls, and what it is a tool for is helping students hear the sounds of each letter. This is only the vowels right here. So those are all the sounds our vowels make. And you see what's called kid lips cards. So we talk about what are your teeth doing? Where is your tongue at? Where is the sound coming from? All right, but phonemic awareness, are we ready for some?
Let's try it.
All right. All right, so those are called choppers. So students get out their choppers in kindergarten, and the teacher will say a word, and their job is to chop it or segment it into the sounds they hear. A different Haggerty exercise is the opposite, where the teacher will say the sounds and they have to blend it into the word. So there's hand motions that go with each of these things. I really want to show the roller coaster in first grade. Any chance?
We can try it again. Emily, did we hear any of the audio last time?
I did not hear audio from the video, no. So she might have to unmute it on her video instead of the computer. I know that's confusing.
On my
Video.
this.
Yeah, but as soon as I click on,
Okay, now I hear nothing. However, you were talking just fine earlier was working just fine.
yeah, so I have to leave this one again. And we have to shut that one off. No, I don't know if you can
Are
play
you gonna shut that one off?
hear the audio.
Yeah,
The board would hear it.
I'm gonna recommend that we play it so the board can hear it.
Okay,
And then I'll work with Emily to link these 3 videos as part of what we publish to the public with an explanation of that.
that works.
Doing choppers, coasters, and
So they're not seeing the word.
they are only listening. This is purely a, can you hear all of the sounds? But
There's a
44 of
transfer
them.
between the visual and the auditory, you know what I'm saying?
That is called phonics. So
Yeah,
when we
yeah.
add letters, are you talking the hand motions?
Well, no,
or
I'm
what
just
are you
talking like when, like bo or whatever.
Yep.
If that word would be in front of them as well.
Oh, yep.
That's what I'm asking.
Okay, not at this point. The phonemic awareness, and that's part of the science reading that sometimes is hard to grasp, that they have to just be able to recognize with their ears and play with the sounds before they attach them to letters. So if they're unable to hear the difference between an eh and an I, they're gonna have a problem with spelling.
Now, my only question is, they're doing this, the sounds in isolation, it seems, without something visual to attach the sound.
Let me give you this different example from a kindergarten classroom after 2 weeks of using this materials and what the teacher said she noticed. So in a typical year prior to this learning, we would ask kids to sound out words and put them on their whiteboard. So pretend the word is cat. we would say, right, cat, at. And kids would usually, because the first sound is the easiest one to hear and translate into letters, they would get that first sound and then they'd kind of be stuck. And literally the teacher would be like, cat, right? All the sounds over and over to try and get them to hear it. Well, Haggerty, the way they teach ending sounds and isolating that is you punch out the last sound. So you would say cat, okay, in these exercises on the mat. So now fast forward to when we're doing some spelling and I ask a kid to, the teacher literally asked the kids to write cat and they would get the C. And then she just said, well, what other letters can you hear? Let's try punching it out. And they went cat. And every single kid wrote the T. Mhm. So the teachers will no longer go without Haggerty. It makes me happy.
So there's difference between, you know, K1 and 2,
Mhm.
but you're gonna talk about the phonemic part.
We're gonna talk about the phonics part
The
now.
phonics part.
Yes. So phonics is when you add letters, and this map it exercise would be very common for you to see in our classrooms. Am I still good to hit play?
You have play on it. I have to take your sound back on.
Okay. Yeah, so that's a phonics in action. I wanted to also show you one of the ways in which we're going to communicate what's most important about these lessons to future teachers, but I can pause here for questions, noticings, wonderings. How many of the kids did you see could tap out and independently write clam?
I think we're excited because we're seeing it really work and our students respond to this. And it's, I mean, to me anyways, I feel a little foolish that it's taken us, you know, we're getting back to some things, some of the basics, right? And really focusing on this. And, you know, it's exciting work. And, you know, we're having some good initial results. And, you know, there's been different trends, as you know, in education over the years in reading instruction. And I think we found something that's really, you know, really strong.
Yeah, kindergarten teachers are seeing decoders like they say they've never seen before. They are seeing student handwriting like they've never seen before, which may seem small, but the sooner you can get students to form letters without having to think about it, the more it frees up space for them to think about other things. So it is very important. Our second grade classrooms are saying they are seeing writers of paragraphs like they've never seen before.
It seems like it really makes them think, like using all sorts of, different parts of their brain.
So when you have them write a sentence in second grade, how does that work?
Well, that is honestly where what I love to watch is the level to which students are able right now to make up their own. Too much in the past, we've been relying on the teacher guiding conversations as young kids are writing sentences. And now it's more, let's read this story. Let's talk about what did the characters feel and how would you feel if you were in that situation, for example. And then that's what the kids write about. And so every student's paper is different from the kids around them.
So teacher gives them a prompt, open-ended.
Yep. And they have lots of discussion.
Mhm.
They will, if they are creating, for example, a story with a beginning, middle, and an end, they'll do what we call a quick sketch. So too long in the past, we've let drawing for younger people be the last thing you do. If you have time left, then you get to, and what we found is their sketch is how they hold the idea of what they want to write about. So then if they forget what they want to write, they look back at their quick sketch and then they complete their ideas.
I think it wasn't that long ago. I think it was actually towards the beginning of the year. I walked into a class. I don't know if it was kindergarten or first. And, they was, there's a superintendent. And they were doing their reading, their phonics and they, within like 30 seconds, they spelled the word superintendent.
Really?
Super in ten end.
Did they get their choppers out?
Yeah, they were doing it. It was cool.
What was the feel from the legislature in your?
Well, the group I was talking to was completely supportive of it. So they wanted folks to tell from their perspective.
But the
And they were
education
looking
committee,
for folks that agreed with them.
an education committee you were talking to,
Yes, yeah.
with the purpose of,
Funding letters training for all school districts through the
thank
legislature.
you.
Other, where else is it being used, or do you know?
What other school districts? I know that Grand Rapids has a cohort started right now. Matamidi has a cohort started. Anoka Ramsey has a cohort.
Is there any kind of communicating with knowledge transfer, knowledge sharing?
Most of our communication is through MDE right now.
Oh,
Yeah. And we do have, because we had so many people, they kind of planned for us and they are accommodating when our schedule and what times we requested. And we do have folks from other districts that join that.
How much more funding do you need?
Well, I would take from the legislature about
Let's just say,
$500,000.
I'm just saying, how much is required to teach this well in dollars?
Well, per cohort, per year of training, and there's actually 2 years of this training. So the first year is understanding these basics, and the second year is more understanding vocabulary instruction, comprehension, and writing. So it's more geared to 3 through 8 teachers. But 1 year at a cohort our size is about $70,000.
And when they say the science of reading, that means that there's some research that backs up that this is like the best.
Correct. Yeah, this is the National Reading Panel, which was research across the nation and across all programs. And
So the
all
district
of
is funding everything right now. You get no money from the state?
No, Jim.
that. You may,
Yeah,
Michelle, this is
please.
totally appropriate for you.
So this is
one of the things that, remember I tell you, we keep going back to the state of Minnesota with our COVID funding and trying to get that passed. Well, I think this took us 4 tries. We are currently using the summer, it's called ESSER 3. It's not really summer, but extended targeted services type money extra. It's not for the regular school day. There's about 550,000 there. We have in this series got 308,000 of it dedicated to this letters training. So we will have the majority of our K-3 staff trained hopefully through this first part before the legislature even gets to their agreement point, because we're not waiting for the legislature is what we're telling you.
So
We're moving forward with our COVID money.
Yeah, but I will say, just because we don't want to be a left out district, if the state comes out and says, we're going to give every district money for letters training, right?
Well, we're gonna
Then-
have continual costs.
So, then we'll have to go back and say, well, maybe we can get some money for retro, or, that is something that I feel like we would have an obligation to make sure that we get our equal portion of dollars, if there are some allocated to the districts. But, we'll see what happens. We can't wait. We're happy to be leaders in this, and we'll see what the state comes up with for support.
Thank you.
I had originally thought that maybe Jessica could give you a one-on-one on Atlas Rubicon. I think that we went about double what we thought that she was going to. So maybe we can bring her back at a different meeting to go over Atlas Rubicon, which is, again, that is simply a software solution for us to document a curriculum, right? Curriculum's a plan where you have an end in mind, what you want your students to know and be able to do and understand. And then how are you going to get them there? And that's your plan, which is your curriculum, which includes, your assessments, your units, your lessons, what resources you would utilize and all of that. And it's just, we're really making progress and efforts to try and document that and be more intentional with that.
Would that be available to parents, like when she talks about seeing curriculum, would that be a use of that, or is that not going to be a use of that?
It absolutely is our hope, and not a hope, it's what we intend to do, is to have transparency, to have that kind of a solution to where we can post portions of our of the curriculum online for you pick the class, and then you would have access to seeing that. It's a little tricky because we're going to have to make some decisions on what portions of that we would have be open, fully open, and what, because let's say a teacher, puts in their unit, their end of unit test, or, things of that nature that you don't necessarily want public. So we'll have to make some decisions on, what are the pieces in that curriculum design that are open, to the public. Right now, because we haven't focused as much on documenting our curriculum, it is a little bit more tricky. Where we would have to work with individual teachers on that. And, at the end of the day, we know that our curriculum really is the Minnesota academic standards that we're required to focus on. But yeah, our intent is to have that open.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on then to number 10, the information session, and 10A is the hockey arena agreement.
I take it Darren is not here. I invited him. The hockey arena lease is a 4-year lease that we adopt every 4 years. And Darren worked with them to come up with some initial, well, these are the numbers that they are requesting. We're paying currently about $78,000 for the arena lease, and the first year, 22 here, it would go to Well, it's actually the 22-23 school year. They are asking for 82,000 and some odd change, and then it goes up from there. So their biggest percent is that first year, which I calculate, I think about a little over 5%, which is what we are seeing in most areas of our world right now, is anything from 5 to 10% increases. He did negotiate some extra ice time, which is very important because we were getting kids out of school a little bit early to get over to the ice arena, and now we won't have to do that so much. I won't say it won't ever happen, but we should have less of it. What else did they have on here? Those were the big things.
And by altering the start time, they actually were able to add some ice time, so we're actually getting like 80 additional hours over the winter season. And then just reminding the school that we do have the availability to take our 5 classes over there.
Yeah,
during the
and
year.
you can see on Darren's scribbling here that 80 hours of ice time, if you bought it individually, totals 17,600, and the request from the hockey arena was not 17,600 increase. So so that's all I have on that. If you have any questions,
What's yearly storage?
I'm assuming that
That's for-
they store
there's-
stuff at the hockey
yeah.
arena.
So our jerseys and gear, it's technically the school's gear that's stored there.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Is there a fee to that, or are they just?
Nope,
they just
No,
put it-
They don't-
that's included.
That's
They just
included
put it
in
there.
that rate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're saying that's included. We're storing your stuff, so. And we're not charging you extra. It's part of the package deal.
All right, thank you.
All right, any other discussion on the hockey arena agreement? Questions? We'll move on.
I just let the board know that we did that on as an informational item, and because this is an ongoing contract, I believe that as superintendent, I have the ability to sign off on that without the board officially voting on that. So if the board had, concerns about it, then I would hold off on signing. But unless I would hear otherwise, past practice would be that I would sign off on that on your behalf. It's a continuing lease agreement that we have with that group.
Okay. We'll move on to 10B, the scoreboard advertising.
So go back 6 years ago. We purchased a video scoreboard for our new gym, and we sold advertisement for that, and that advertisement for the 3 main big spaces was $5,000, and I believe the second space was 3,000, smaller spaces. And that lease now, advertising lease to our constituents is now ended. We extended them a year because of COVID. And the scoreboard is now owned by the district. And so now we are bringing forth a proposal to continue leasing advertising space to businesses in the area. And we had about 3 meetings to go over what we thought might work. And we came up with, they had some strange names. I can't even remember what they were off the top of my head, but we came down to simple names. If you are in one of the big 3 spaces, you're a gold partner. If you're in one of the side spaces, you're a silver partner. And then if you just want to do live streaming with us, this would be new, you would be a bronze. And we put some cost to that, and we did the gold partner at 2,500, the silver at 1,500, and the bronze at 1,200. These would be things that we would need to go out to the community and sell. And then we have some things that they would get for that. And this is still the old document. We have the new document. So the poster ad is off of there.
Oh, I was gonna ask. That was
Yeah,
one of
yeah.
my questions, actually.
Yep, well, it's off on my other document, but we just pulled over. the
Great,
old
thank you.
ones. But they would get certain things at each of these levels, with obviously the gold partner getting more than the bronze partner. If we sold all of these, we would come out about 20,000 in revenue. I believe I added up. We do have some costs, but some of these costs we're already paying. We're paying a coach stipend to a person to do the live streaming. And currently we're doing this live streaming is really free, and it's for the people that are on the gold and silver level currently. We're already paying for the streaming software. That's already part of our operating costs. We would though need to develop brochure, and we talked to Emily, and Emily agreed to work with us on coming up with a brochure. But then we thought we kind of need somebody to sell ads, because you know how it isn't going to look good for our AD to be going out there and selling the ads, and I don't think I legally can as a business manager. So we had to come up with an idea there. So we thought we should do a stipend and hire someone within our school system that might be good at that, and go around and ask businesses. Now, we think our gold and silver partners that we currently have, we would start with a big letter, you know, thank you for supporting us, and would you be interested, and see how many of them take interest in it, and then they would maybe just continue. If they don't, but we came up with a whole list. What you don't see here is we have a whole list of about 40 to 50 businesses that we can target for this. But this is a big advertising partnership deal that we would technically need your board approval on, because we are changing it. We are asking to change the amounts of it from our original 5,000 and 3,000, and adding a bronze partner, which is basically live streaming. So, any questions?
This would be on next agenda
Yes.
to vote.
Yep, for a vote.
So do we know what the cost difference is by dropping it in half? With that,
By adding the bronze partner, we would actually gain revenue.
Okay.
It comes out more revenue if we sold every ad that we have
what if,
available.
what if they kept the gold where it was and the silver, and then just put the bronze a little lower? What would that be?
Well,
I was just curious on the overall.
I would have to run the numbers, but you know, with the bronze and the silver, if you double it, you're gonna double your revenue. Darren, and also my fear is that we will not get people to jump on at that price point. When we originally did the scoreboard, the one thing that the businesses that jumped on board with that, we were purchasing it, and they were helping us purchase it. And that's why they bought those ads. I don't know that we would get the same response with just being on the board, because now the board is ours. So, and I have heard that comment from a couple of our businesses in town. So that at the $5,000, we have also had people default on the price points that we have had, and those that meant that we had to find somebody else to cover those, because they paid the first year, but the second year was a no-go. So, and we did gain people to do that, but it does take a little bit, and
That's where I think, I mean, if you were able to do that, even during these tough times, I think, why not? I mean, we can get more, and people see that appealing, why not ask? I mean, it doesn't hurt to ask. I don't know, that's just my thoughts, but I understand why you're going a little more.
Yeah, businesses are gonna wanna buy the, both, you know, the board twice.
But they
Yeah.
were already paying and willing to pay for that,
but they were willing to
They were-
pay because we want
Dues are
the
buying
even
board.
like last year. And
They were buying the board for the school
Oh,
district.
got it.
They paid the payment on the board, basically. Now this is just in advertise, I shouldn't say just in advertising, but now it's really advertising. Because the board is ours.
The revenue from this would go.
Back into the activities department.
Well, yeah, I mean, that'll be interesting discussions because, you know, there'll be ongoing costs just with that. I mean, for us to have high quality video streaming, we're gonna have to continue to invest in high quality video equipment and sound and.
Yep.
You know, there's gonna be lots of things that we'll have to consider, and we can, you know, sky's the limit on that. I mean, we could do all kinds of things, but you need money for the quality cameras that it needs.
That changes all the time.
More technology, for sure. So we would bring this back next time for a vote.
Any other questions for video? All right, we'll move on then to the restricted budget and take it away.
All right, we're gonna start with LTFM. I have Keith here to help me talk through some of this. All right, so the last couple of years, we have not done huge projects with LTFM. We're finishing up Fund 6 right now. If you remember the 2019 bond, the last project that we have on there is the drainage and cement project out here. And we are in the process. We're getting quotes as we speak, and he's verifying those quotes as we speak. So we haven't done a lot. So we do have a decent fund balance in LTFM. And the intent, of course, of that money is that we're going to be fixing our facilities. And this is like for like, we can't renovate the buildings. We can't put in different bathrooms with this money, as an example. We can't build a CTE wing with this money, even though we'd like to. So, and we typically have health and safety is just standard. It happens. We have a 10-year cycle. We have to have a 10-year plan, which will come back, which is separate than what we budget for the year. ICS helps us put that together for the 10 years. And we always do some different things some years with health and safety. And this year we're going to do some asbestos projects that would be additional. We are also looking at each of the buildings. Primary courses are newest, so we don't have anything listed under there. We have some cooler and freezer, and we're at the intermediate school. We talked about the addition, and we are not going to be able to do that because we originally thought we could use Fund 2 money with that fund balance there, and that's not a possibility. So right now we've got that on a hold thought process. We talked about kitchen renovations also with possibility of Fund 2 because that space is so small, and that is also not a possibility. Renovations are not allowed. The only thing we can do with Fund 2 money is equipment, staffing, and food. We do have the domestic hot water system that we were going to do with the boiler project. And we have put that off. As you see, it says delay another year because of the cost of that and the cost of some other projects. We may bring that back. If you go down to the middle school, we have a freezer cooler replacement that has to happen. And currently, we were thinking that would be about 100,000, maybe a little over. And we can pay for the cooler and the freezer itself. The equipment part of it would Fund 2 if needed, but then we would have some costs out of LTFM. But we are finding, and I'm going to let Keith take over, that we may not have to do that.
the first company that came in and met with Deanna over there, the food service director, told her that the thing was junk, the floor was cracked and had to be replaced. It didn't have very kind of underlay in the floor. ICS and I got together, another company, we dug the blueprints out, found out the floor is the proper floor and there's nothing wrong with the floor. And there's the center between the two units, there's some frost that gets on the floor. Oh, after walking into the units and looking at them, when they originally built in 2000, where they had your fans and in both the cooler and the freezer, when you open a door, the back of the fan sucks that warm, moist air in from the kitchen itself and condensates around that center insulated wall and causes major condensation and frost problems on both sides. And if that would have been installed properly, either off to the side or towards the back, preferably pulling that cold air through it instead of sucking that warm moist air through it, we wouldn't have half the problems we're having with it. So originally in 2000, middle school, as we all know, was installed improperly. So we're working on trying to figure this out to make sure we don't have to tear all this out, and we can just do a little refrigeration project. And we don't have the cost on that yet, but it'd be well under $100,000. So we're looking into that part of it.
So ICS has been a great help in looking at plans and figuring out what's been there and what was designed in the past. The other piece at the middle school is our tennis courts. We have 3 courts there, correct?
Correct.
And they are in need of, we tried to patch them and patches.
It turned into a sinkhole, basically what it was. It just didn't, it wasn't sealed properly. I don't think it was originally installed right either, that set of tennis courts.
So, the tennis courts at the middle school,
Geez, Keith.
we're gonna have the tennis courts, we're gonna need to replace them in there. That's a chunk of change.
Oh my goodness.
355,000 is our first estimate. And then we're also looking at the automation controls for the HVAC system at the middle school. And we're also looking at a district-wide HVAC system controls through over the next few years because things are aging out on us. And as with anything that is electronic, after a while, you can't get parts. But Keith has talked about the possibility that we may be able to bring down this cost.
Yeah, we're looking at, I mean, next year's budget, we're looking at approximately $60,000 for the middle school to change these controls out. And like Michelle said, outdated, you can't get parts anymore. It's technology like everything else. Can't get parts. So then we decided to dig deeper into this thing. The high school, the intermediate school, this is going to happen as well within however long we stage it out. It's going to come to, right now at today's cost, it's going to be $600,000. And that's just for parts of the system. I was talking to a couple of my maintenance guys the other day, and one of them has some experience, a lot better than I do in automation. And we're looking at maybe trying to see if we could get some other system that would be more user friendly, where the technology would be easier to change out and it would be all proprietary to a certain company. So we're kind of looking into that too, to see if that's something we can save some money on as well.
So as you can see, a lot of this is still in the works. It's going to be a changing. Track resurfacing at the high school is next. That has been on the agenda for a number of years now because we were going out for the bond, but we do need to update the track surface, and actually that $170,000 now needs to move to 200. I just got that quote today that they're estimating the project would be about $200,000. And then there's some other things on here. We have the roofing over the science rooms. We're going to delay the parking lots. We are going to look at the abatement bond process, but they also at the high school need to kind of be redesigned. Parking lots and the student services are the main parking lots that we would be looking at.
One of the things that I've heard regularly from the superintendent student advisory group is parking lot safety at the high school. And just how we engineer that, and there's some things that people are used to, right? If you go into the Walmart parking lot or whatever, they're slanted and you can only go down one way, and you don't have people going every which way.
It's
right
like
now-
a NASCAR track.
And right now, it's designed that way, and we can do better, and we need to do better.
We have multiple entrances, which means we have multiple exits.
So,
People are going every which.
I just, we'll anticipate whatever we come up with, it'll be retraining people, and that always takes a little time. What entrance you need people to go in, where do people exit? But right now, we don't really have any system in place. And it's pretty impactful when the students are talking to us about it.
Yes,
When's the goal to having that?
Well, there's some things that I hope that we're gonna even be able to see small things even in this last month. I'll have to connect with Barb on it, but we were gonna put in a temporary crosswalk if you, Keith, so we could touch base on that and just some other small things, but
to cut off entrances and stuff, that's going to have to be designed, and
It's gotta be engineered in, so it's done. right.
so when we redo the lot, it's done.
yeah, honestly, my hope was that could have been a project we could do this summer, but it doesn't look like that's a realistic goal. It'll probably be a next summer project.
It'll be designed this summer.
Then we're looking at the wrestling mat storage. Again, we were hoping that we could take care of that with the big bond. That didn't happen. We do not have a good answer for that yet, so we'll see where that goes. And then we're looking at the Tiger Gym bleachers for handicap accessibility. To replace the bleachers was how much, Keith?
The north side didn't, it's all because of changing code issues. Anytime you may do a remodel or something, so it's gotta be brought up to code. All those bleachers have been there since what, Dave, 86?
Long time.
And
Years
they're
old as
way out
we
of
are.
code, and to do anything, the Tiger on the north side, they cannot do any modifications, you would have to tear that whole side out. That's $75,000. The south side, and my vendor's waiting to hear back from the city. For about $9,500, we can do some modifications to that one. And if he lets us slide in without having to do any handicap accessibility, we can still get the rails up on that side if we want to do. But it's all gonna hinge on how badly it's out of code. To bring that north side up, we lose, because of the spacing of the seats that have for code, you lose, I wanna say about 100 individual seating capacity in that side alone, just because of code changes. So we're working on that.
So all that just to put, this is to answer the question that you brought, Sue, to me on the railings, just for safety to get people up and down those stairs.
Yes, and that doesn't qualify for LTFM, we found out.
Right.
So, well, more to come on that also. And then we have what we call our yearly and emergency pots. Basically it's maintenance costs that we know are gonna come up for the year. We always have roof things that we need to do. There's always some kind of motor or pump that goes out in our HVAC systems, and they are getting more clarifications on what we can and cannot do. So we've had to shift some of our thoughts to that it's got to be moved back to the unassigned. They don't let software or working with the automation system necessarily does not constitute LTFM, I guess. But anyway, we've got about $1 million of projects here. maybe a little better when we go to our next update here. And so we will have a negative variance, but we do have a fund balance to handle that. And that was, you know, we designed it that way over the last couple of years because of COVID, and we decided to be cautious with our projects at that time, so. But that doesn't mean that we don't have needs. There's quite a few needs, so. Any questions on LTFM? Capital planning is pretty basic. We are, we typically, because we're paying down the bond on the North Elementary or Intermediate School, we get about 556,000 out of our, it's about 700 and some thousand that we receive in aid. Between aid and levy, but we are paying about a $200,000 bond each year with that part of that money. So on actual capital, we get about 556,000. We do have a $2.7 million bond or fund balance there currently. Part of that is because we sold some Oakland, if you recall, sold multiple properties and that money went in there. And then last year, 22, we had some changes in what year some of our, I'll use the bands as an example. They were supposed to be in 21, but ended up in 22 because of delays in vehicles. So, and I think that's going to be the future also. So there you go.
Where's that 600,000 gonna go again from selling the land? What fund?
That will go in here.
In that,
It will go in because it's a capital sale.
625.
yeah,
Well, after we pay the fees, it'll be a little less.
little graft. 600,000.
All right, typically we have vans that are aging out, but this year, because we are recommending that we are moving to TransFinder, software for transportation from VersaTrans, and it is a little bit of money to do that. But because we didn't have to pay 70-some thousand in vans, this was the year, the 2 years to bring that on. And then we'll have ongoing software costs, just like we do for any of our softwares. Buildings and Grounds is currently looking for a lawnmower and looking at some lease options. The lease options though that we found, Ben would like the kind where you just turn it back in and you get a new one. But everything that has been proposed to us has been a lease to purchase. So, which means it would, in most cases, up the cost of the total purchase about $8,000 to $10,000, depending on the length of the lease. And then we always.
We'll have to hit a good garage sale or something.
Then we always have something in there for other equipment. We do run our equipment until it dies. So we did have 2 pieces die on us this year. We got a couple that were in the revised budget. But we always have a standing 15,000 there for that. The lawnmower obviously is more than 15,000. We are looking at a commercial lawnmower, not a lawnmower, home lawnmower. So they're a little bit more expensive. We have typical copier lease. And as you see, there's some red or maroonish colored numbers. Those numbers have not been updated yet. We are still, we're close on the one-to-one student technology and infrastructure piece. Those amounts will be going up because of course the costs for the one-to-one devices are going up. And we are doing 2 classrooms. When originally the one-to-ones came on, we were hoping to do 3 a year on the rotation, and that's not going to be possible. So we're down to 2, but the good news is we're getting cases for them, and the newer ones are should last us longer. And then you will see there's a teaching and learning column on here for a large curriculum adoption. Last year, the finance committee asked us to set aside 200,000 since our fund balance was going up for teaching and learning materials, which will help us with our letters training. The pieces that need to go to our training. But we will also have another piece of that we typically start with that sitting in an assigned code. Jessica and I haven't had a chance to sit down and deal with that yet, but we will by our next finance meeting. We should have a number for that. I'm sure I will still be sitting, right, Jessica?
Yeah, you'll be fine.
And then our typical furniture and fixtures and for the buildings that we divide out among them based on student, and we have an emergency fund of 10,000 that we typically have there. So that variance is 526. If you take off the 200,000, that's 326,000 variance for the current year without that adoption, which is slightly above the 250 that we are normally at. And like I said, we're still working on some things, so I expect the variance maybe to go up a little, and we may have to do some adjusting to make sure that we don't spend down our fund balance too fast. Any questions on capital? Staff development is next, and this is pretty standard. The one change that you will see on here is I listed a district staff development day, and when I was talking to finance, I did forget one thing. So the district staff development day is an estimate of 1 day of district-wide staff development, and I think we hold 2 a year. That's actually a replacement for the literacy coach who we had to move into Title II. Originally, I had hoped that we would not have to move that back, but our variances are starting a little far apart on that side area. So I moved basically that cost back in with just a different way of doing it. Because Title II, what we used to have a class size reduction in Title II, well, that's now our literacy coach, and that's all they're going to approve for that. We will never be able to go back to having class size reduction out of that. So that's a federal. They said we had to, and okay, but there's not much we can do about that. So there you go. So that increased our unassigned area, which for 1 year was fine. But going forward, we're gonna have to do some jockeying. But otherwise, I think most of that is pretty standard for what we do, right, Jessica? Wait, don't touch that button. Then we go to ATPS. Can I go right into the assigned? Our ATP PSQ comp. This is also pretty standard. The tech integrationist was added 2 years ago. This is the second full year is 22. So this is 23, so it would be our third year. So we're doing a 50-50 cost share there. And otherwise, most of that is spelled out in our Q-Comp agreement on what we spend out there. And that fund balance also is pretty good at 448,000. If the building goals aren't met, and I think a lot of our building goals are defined with MCAs, a lot of times that's staying in our assigned Q-Comp. That is not a restricted code. I just want to make that clear to the board. That is not set aside by statute. That is set aside by Princeton Public Schools. So the purpose of this money, though, is to help our staff perform better in the classroom. And then the technology and activity account. the technology assigned is where parents pay for either upfront or things that go wrong with their, it's not iPads, it's Chromebooks for the most part. And or if their child breaks something, they pay the full freight of it. We actually run it through a separate assigned code. It's separately there. As you see this year, I have added student cases of 30,000, and that's to help take some pressure off of capital because we buy those cases with the Chromebook purchase, and that helps maintain those. We also had a fund balance there originally of 35,000 that had nothing to do with the parents. So, but the reason we're putting them there is to help their student keep better care of their device. And I think it's working. And then the activity account is the same. It's the 500 in and the 500 out. That's pretty typical. We put a plug number in there because we have to have a budget. And then basically whatever happens in Fund 10, as we call it, that's the extra fundraising that the basketball group does or the football group does. We track that all separate for students. And that goes in there. So we just put in a number and it's usually fine. So that's all I have on the budget side.
The nutrition services budget.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Okay, here you go. Here's some fun. Click on the second bullet where it says fund balance. The first one is just the state. Currently, at the end of the 21 school year, we have a $1.3 million fund balance in food service. That is in large part to our amazing staff in food service. We did things that other districts did not do during the pandemic. We made sure that families had 7 days of meals during the first wave of the shutdown, the first, March of 2020. Many districts did not do that. We are also currently, the feds are paying the freight, which is more than what we would gain if we had our, parents paying it. And because the feds are paying, of course, we have more participation. So I also expect this fund balance to go up, but I didn't tell the state that yet. They want to know how we're going to get back into compliance because we can only we're supposed to maintain 3 months of expenditures in fund balance, which I put there, it's estimated at about 650,000. But as we're working through this is really tough. If you knew exactly what your expenses were going to be with food, trucking, think of fuel, prices of what were the paper goods that we need in food service, the containers we need have gone up exponentially even in this year. We aren't expecting those things to go down. So we do have a list of equipment wish list, but we do not know if we will even get close to buying all of that because we're expecting our revenue to go down. If we do not have free food from the feds next year, which that's what it currently looks like, we expect our staff, we will need to hire 3 more staff alone because currently when people left, we didn't fill all the positions because we had no need for anybody to key in numbers and track the meals that each person was buying, each kid. Professional development, of course, district-wide went down during COVID-19, so we'll put that back in because we'll be back. If we're collecting money from students, there's gonna be fees, rev track fees. You know, that totals 50,000, which is in a normal year, which is credit cards and people paying online. And then we're gonna expect a revenue reduction because we're gonna expect that we're gonna go back to what we normally do for feeding of kids. The number of kids eating will go down. So we're gonna expect some kind of revenue reduction. And then, of course, we put together our equipment list, which totals about 355,000. And then we're expecting food and supply increases. And we put up a number of 125,000. Because we really don't know what they're gonna be. We're just gonna have to wait and walk through that. But that is what I turned into the state of Minnesota for us to get through the bells and whistles of how are you going to address the overage in this fund balance? If we're rolling fund balance at the end of next year, we see that the fund balance is, our revenue is, or we stay on the free program, we're gonna start buying the equipment. Because we do have those needs. Some of our equipment is aging out. And we are buying some of those pieces already this year, so. That's fun too. Don't get that.
Michelle?
Thank you, Michelle. We'll move on to 10F, the new access request from the city.
I think we're gonna have Keith speak to that. He has some knowledge on exactly where that is. I think Keith was originally approached from someone from the city, and then we had worked with the city administrator, and you know, basically in a nutshell, the city would like to have access of our property to have access down to the Rum River behind the middle school, and I believe it's for their kayaking.
Yeah, they're canoe and kayak.
Their canoe and kayaking programming. That's a fairly big attraction to our community, and they found that they just have a need to have a different or another access point, and behind our property seems to be an ideal location for them. So Keith, maybe you could speak more to that.
Yeah, they approached me if we'd be interested, and I said, let's scope it out before we say anything to anybody. So I went down there one day, and do you all know where the middle school outside classroom is? Down the bank a little bit, you walk down here, and outdoor classrooms right there. What they want to do is use the same path that we put in, make a path around the classroom and go maybe another 50 yards, 30 yards to a point that's right there on the river. So this canoe, their outfitter can access it whenever I don't know what their season is, but what it would.
May.
Pardon me?
End of May,
End
I
of May.
think they kick it off Memorial Weekend, they did that. So.
Okay. So school will be ending anyway, so that wouldn't be real big problem there. But what I want to make a point of this is, because I was all concerned myself about if people are gonna park back here, people gonna, what it is the outfitter has the individuals, they have the canoes or the kayaks, they bring the individual and the kayaks down on a trailer in a van, stop there on the fire road, and then the outfitter helps the individuals get the kayak or the canoe down to the access. And then they take off. There's no traffic, cars parked there whatsoever. The people canoe down to was it Reeby Park, whatever it is right there, and then they get off there. The reason they want to do this is the other access is a few miles up the road. And it would take almost a day to get down and back to the parks. That's why they approached us. It's a perfect spot, kind of right in the middle. So it's more of a short run for the people that don't want to sit there all day canoeing down the river. To me, it looks like a decent deal. And of course, Michelle, they were going to work out the legal schmeagle stuff, but I don't think it'd be too bad of a deal myself.
So yeah, we did reach out to legal because of course, anytime you have somebody on your property, there's liability issues. But Jay seemed to think that we could give them an easement to use it for the canoe and kayak program and tie in so that there was liability coverage from the They're the third party.
Oh,
No, the city would be
The
direct,
outfitter.
but the outfitter is also part of this. And of course, once you have a path there, somebody else will do it. But we would have to have some kind of legal agreement, because if something happens, even if they trip and break their ankle, we don't want to have liability for that on our insurance, and our insurance would require us, they're not gonna be too happy that we're having a third party come through our property without some kind of legal agreement, so.
Yeah, and the city would do all the prep work. They'd move the trees and the P rock, whatever I had down to the access. They take care of everything, and set it all up. So it'd be no cost to us whatsoever.
So this is an information item. And, we don't see any reason not to work with the city on this. We ran it through finance. We wanted to give it to you as information. And assuming there's not an issue from the board's perspective, then we would continue our work with the legal and, get that ironed out, and then we would brief the board on where we're at with that. I don't know how long that would take. I can't imagine too long, and I would imagine they may have a sense of urgency if they wanted to start the season. So, there'd have to be some work done here pretty quick.
Yeah, and the easement would have to be, since it's a little document, you would approve it at the board level, so.
Would you need an agreement that it wouldn't be in use when school was in session? I mean, would there be any interruption to that classroom down there, for example? Nothing
No,
like that.
because they only do that on weekends,
limited
but
hours,
Oh, I
we
see.
do that kayak.
Okay,
yeah,
Not
that's
during the
very
week.
limited.
okay.
And it's a summer program, so, other than Memorial Weekend, I don't even think they go to Labor Day weekend. They might, but
Weekends,
Just
so.
a week.
I'm
Just a
actually
weekend.
surprised that they're going just from the middle school down to the park, because that's not far at all. That'll be done in like an hour or
And that
so.
was their thing. They wanted to have that short run for people that don't want to spend the whole day on the river,
Just
that
an
kind of
option.
thing.
And I don't know if they even looked at the golf course, because I know there's times that they come out at the golf course too. Yes, when they leave Riverside Park, they'll go to the golf course and come out there.
What, once that's there, Keith, what would keep me from driving my car down there and putting my canoe down, or is there a concern about that, that once it's there, the public figures that out, it will become an access?
I can only guess them about. I wouldn't say, I don't think it'd be too crazy. I wouldn't think. I mean, we'd have to work out something with the city as well on it or something, some kind of signage.
Yeah, I think that's a valid concern, and I think we need to talk to them about that as we're doing this process. And signage would need to be some kind of a requirement that specified who has access to that and who does not.
And we have signage up now that says, don't walk back there during school hours, and you got people walking dogs back there all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wrote it.
is that you?
Are they all wave?
Yeah. We haven't arrested you yet. so-
Yeah.
Be a little
She's just
different
doing
if
an
they came with a
inspection.
vehicle though.
No,
Yeah.
I'm not driving, I'm walking, yeah. Okay, anything else on that request from the city? Thank you, Keith. Ben. We'll move on to number 11, the action item, and that is to do the second reading of policy. We went through these last week. The last meeting and the activities that was here earlier has been removed. They're gonna have that activities committee take a look at that. So that was removed from what was here earlier. And so is there a motion to accept the second reading of the policies as presented?
So moved.
Motion made by Deb,
Second.
second by Jim. Any discussion? Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. There were no additions to the agenda. Future meetings, executive planning, finance, we meet May 3rd, and then the school board scholar on the 4th. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Motion made by Jim, second by Sue. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.
All right.